man, that's I really enjoy this. Well, you ever been stuck on 8 bars? Sure you have. There's like a million YouTube videos covering how to get out of those 8 bars. Honestly, I've never watched any of them. I'm just gonna show you guys how I do it.
Oh, so cool.
What's up, everyone? My name is Proppa, and as I just said, I'm going to be taking this 8-bar loop that I just showed you guys and turning it into a full drop. I feel like this is a common thing amongst many producers where they get stuck on 8 bars or 16 bars and they don't know where to go from there. They have like a bass line and a beat. This is my favorite part of production, is having just a raw bass line and a beat and an open canvas to do like all these different tricks. So here today, I'm going to show you all the different little things that I do to take just a bass line and a beat and expand it into a full drop. So thank you so much for watching. As some of you know, I have a Patreon. All of the samples and pretty much all the sounds, everything I'm using here and the template is actually available on my Patreon. Highly suggest you go check that out. There's like nearly 100 samples, nearly 100 presets. There's extra tutorial videos, breakdowns of songs that I've made. There's unreleased music on there. Definitely go check that out. But without further ado, I'm gonna jump into my Zoom right here and show you guys how to do it. All right, so first things first, let's play this beat one more time. So this is pretty standard, just a simple bass line. This actually comes from the Proppa Patreon preset packs right here. If you check that out, this is all of the presets I've put out in the past couple months. Some really good stuff. So the first thing I like to tackle is the bass line itself and the notes within it. I think one of the coolest things you could do is use more than one bass line to convey a message in your song. Or more than one bass patch, if you will. So I'll actually keep the same bass melody, but I'll change out the bass line in certain places so that we can get a different kind of groove to it. So let's start with these first 2 notes right here. I know that these stand out on their own pretty clearly. So I'm actually going to cut these 2 off. And in my Proppa Tech House template on Patreon, I have this 808 bass preloaded for you. Let's hear how it sounds when those bass notes are on that 808. So the 808 is kind of creating more of a punchy groove on the beginning. You could even sub it out for these notes as well if you'd like. I think I like it just as the one time. So the next thing I'm going to do is look for some accent notes in this bass line to see if there's anything I can pull out and put on its own. So like these 2 notes right here. I think that these ending notes will actually be a fair moment for a slightly different bass line. So what I'm going to do is jump into Serum and let's cycle through the Proppa Serum preset, see if we could find a different one. This FFT bass. I think this will serve as a fine accent. Let's hear that all together. So I like to play off of the sounds I already have to keep it going and create new ones. So we have this little bass here. What we can do is create a second instance of it. Instead of just copying it over to these notes, we can actually move these notes down. Let's try making it one long note. Let's go, it's on 16th notes. We're going to set this to a quarter note. We're actually going to make it swell. Nice. So it opens up a bit there. Let's hear how that sounds at the end of it. So that right there is one or two, I guess you could say, tricks as to my immediate my immediate actions to make a bass line stand out from just like a very simple sound. We split the most notable notes out of the bass line. So first I go for the most standout notes. And in this case, it was those first two hits that kind of stand on their own while everything else, all the other notes are crowded together. So I grab those two hits and I put them on a bass line that's a little bit more defined, like this 808. Next thing I did was grab some nice accent notes, which in this case was on the end of every two bars, and just try to get a different, less intrusive sound going on there that can kind of just make the groove not so repetitive. Now, there's definitely some more notes that we could probably pull out of this. There's some automations we could do with these different bass sounds. We can make it hit, since a lot of these are two hits in one, we can go like hit, hit, and have each one be different. But for now, I'm going to show you another trick that I always like to do. On all of my presets, I like to create macros that are pretty standard throughout each bass line so that you know exactly what you're working with. Here I have an open macro right here that's actually going to open up the filter. So let's do some automations on that and see what we can get. I think I want it to open and close right here. I think that's a little bit too early in the track to be opening it. So let's actually just open it towards the end here. Not bad. I think we can not open it as much, but let's take that, copy it over. Then maybe we could shift this a little bit to get some variation. So on this one, it opens faster. Actually, open that all the way right away. Beautiful. Now, looking at these bass sounds, there's a lot more that we could layer on top of them. You don't want to crowd the space up too much, so I don't want to do too much bassline layering, but I would love to get some synths in here that complement the groove. So we're going to focus on these two 808 bass notes to start. So I'm going to take these two bass notes. I'm going to jump up to this lane called synth fill, and I'm going to drop them in here. So now we just have a basic serum thing that's going to be copying the 808 bass line. If you head over to my preset pack, I actually have a very nice respace. And I'm going to cut the lows out of this. And then let's give it some opening up action on this filter. Can you hear how it sounds on different octaves? Love that. So let's hear how that sounds in the mix now. So now creating the synth, I'm starting to analyze how it's interacting with the rest of the song. For me, what it's making me realize now is that all of the action is right here on these two 808 basses, and this little thumper bass should lead into something that's a little bit more intense over here. So I'm actually going to pull this right here just to complement the 808 groove. Let's see what happens if we drop this back down an octave. So right there, this respace is actually pointing out to me that this bass could be stronger on those two hits. So what I'm actually going to do is move into my filter movement here, and I'm actually going to take these two hits and just boost them up a little bit. And without that respace layered over, we could hear those bass notes now. Nice. I think that actually gives us the ability to pick the octave back up on this. Nice. I think that's great for me. Let's make sure that we copy over what we just did. Remember to always create anchor automation points for yourself. It comes in handy in the future. Now let's get some variation going since this is more in the realm of leads. I think a cool thing would be first to shift the filter movement. So we're actually going to take this up to about 80 something, and then we're going to take this down. So it'll be, and then let's maybe get some pitch movement down there. We're going to jump into serum. We could shift the bend up action to +1, take it here, and then have that first note bend downwards. Nice. I still think we need something to complement this 808 bass here. So I'm actually going to grab a stab sample from one of my sample packs. This one is an A minor, but it does have like some notes in there that could really anchor it to E minor as well. So let's check that out. Not bad. I think we can play with the pitch. Let's maybe take this pitch up one then. Ooh. This could use actually a little bit of reverb now that I'm hearing it so dry in the mix. You know what? I think I have a room knob right here. There's no room. There it is. I think this is the point where you graduate from 8 bars into 16 bars. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to copy this over to the next point, and we're going to hear the repetition and then see what kind of triggers in our minds what needs to happen next. So right here is actually where I'm going to start creating some variation. I think that's literally just going to be in the beat. I think I want to eliminate this first kick, eliminate what's happening on the first kick. So we're going to get rid of all of the drums here. And then we want to kill the side chain on this part. For those of you that use a compressor for your side chain, you don't need to worry about this. But for those of you that use LFO tool, you know you either need to device off or depth down. If you're on Logic, depth down is just a little bit safer. You might get some clicks and pops with device on off if you're trying to do it quickly, but this is no worries. So from right here, a lot of you guys are thinking this is still kind of a loop and there's not much you can do from here. This is the part where I actually start to make a distinction in the track on how I'm going to break it off from here. And it usually starts from the baseline melody. Now, if I've already broken apart my baseline melody, I've kind of screwed myself. But what I do is I join everything back together really quick, copy it, and then unjoin everything so that I have it copied into my clipboard. I'm actually just going to jump up to this ambience track right here, and I'm going to paste that track right here. Now I have this. And I could start to get really wacky with it. I think now thinking about it, rather than keeping the baseline melody intact, what I want to do is isolate every note that's actually in the baseline and create an arpeggiator out of it. I like 2 bars. So now that I have all of these notes laid out, I'm going to actually jump into the Logic arpeggiator. You could do this with Ableton, obviously, and we're going to try out some different grooves, even though it's just a Serum synth right now. It's actually pretty cool at the beginning. So I want to copy that part only. I think that's actually going to serve as a great melodic foundation for the rest of our track. So let's jump into the synth and see how we could start changing this. I'm actually just going to go right into my Proppa Serum presets, and we're going to find some nice plucks or leads. Now, it's a little bit intrusive, but we're going to do some things to this sound to make it more complementary than anything. Right away, I'm going to take this and I'm going to bounce it in place. So here I have an audio version of that arpeggiator, and I'm going to use some step effects to turn it into something different. So let's jump into the Logic step effects. I know that not everybody has something like this. There are some free plugins on the market for sequencing, but if you have any sort of sequencer for audio files, it's really helpful. So let's jump into this warp section. Maybe we can find something cool here.
One eternity later.
Sometimes a lot of these step effects actually work really well if you add some reverb before them and let that reverb jump into the sequencer. That's really nice. Let's hear that over the beat. And it's not like we're going to use it over the beat, but this is going to be a really good foundation for the melodic part of our track. Now, if you decide that you don't like the placement of the sequence, the phasing of it, then you can actually rephase it. You can change, now that we have it in audio, we could be like, no, I want it here. That's pretty cool. We can rephase it again, see if we like it more in the middle. They all sound great, but I just like messing around with the different phases and seeing if I can get something different. And I think that's my favorite one. So here we have this melodic piece of ambience that could be used to build the entire track. So I'm actually going to separate myself from the drop here. I'm going to drag this over here. We're going to treat it as ambience leading into the drop. And before we move on to that, I'm going to do something with my drums to create a piece to build the rest of the song with. So here I'm going to go into my clap output. This is a Logic specific thing. Resampling is a little easier in Ableton. I set the output to bus 11. I'm going to go into my tops output. We're going to go to bus 11 as well. I'm going to turn this tops bounce into bus 11. And then I am going to turn on recording. And we are going to record the audio from all of those drums into this track. So there we have a drum recording now for the sound. I'm going to undo all of those inputs and outputs I did. Now, if I drag this over here, you'll see I have a perfect drum sample for the buildup. Some things you could do to this now are put on your transient shaper, tighten up those drums. EQ. Cut off the really low frequencies. One of my favorite things to do is use a washout like Endless Smile with a delay-based preset. All right, we'll make sure this stops a bar before the drop. Let's jump into this really quick. I actually want to export this to audio with these step effects and everything on there. I just want it to be a nice little piece of ambience for us. That looks beautiful. Maybe throw on some reverb. Make sure that it's a large room. Make sure that it's really going to be a big reverb. And then I'm going to sweep this up slightly. And then right here, we can make sure it's killed completely. know if I like that. We're going to take this back. Crash cymbal. And then I'm going to throw this on the crash wet channel. For this reverse crash, I'm actually going to take this down here and open up my selection-based processing. We will throw on a reverb. There's also a large reverb. Add effect tail, apply it. Got this nice long reverbed crash. I'm going to cut the attack of it and then sweep it through here. And add a fade in so we don't have to worry about doing automations. Take that way down. Also need to make sure there's no sidechain on this section. Last thing to fill it out is I'm just going to grab a fill from one of my sample packs as well. See how that sounds. So once I have somewhat of 8 to 16 bars of a drop, a little bit of a buildup, some sort of foundation here now with the melody and whatnot, what I'm going to do is find that anchor synth. Your anchor synth is the defining sound of your track. It could be used often or it could be used little. It could generally be dropped in any part of the track and sound good, but you save it for the best moment a lot of times. So I'm actually going to jump onto this stab sound and I'm going to try out some different sequences over the bass line to see if there's a sound that really just agrees with it. Kind of want to do one of these like continuous things and then see how we can switch it up. All right. I think I want to mess with the actual sequence itself first, so let's get some fast notes in there. I think we need a different sound. We'll go here and here. I think that's going to serve as a great sequence. Actually, I want this right here. Go up an octave. And also now mess with these notes. We can go like up an octave, down. Let's try that. Beautiful. I really, really like that. So now we're going to actually I'm going to cycle through my synths again and see if there is some kind of synth or lead that works really nice in here. So now this synth is actually kind of cool for me. I wouldn't necessarily layer it in like this, where we have all this extra stuff going on. I would want it to be the main focus. I would maybe even dumb down the bass line for a section like this. But with that said, I think this is going to serve as a great lead sound for our build up and our track, a good anchor synth. Now, just to recap what I did there, it wasn't like I did anything too crazy. Just took a sound and drew out a random sequence, but you just want to be listening to the bass line while you're doing it. Every single change, just note, like, is this syncopating with the bass line? Is it distracting from the bass line? So I think we can definitely maintain this a little more. So let's see what happens if we drop this on the buildup. Let's throw an EQ on there. We get a low cut or in a high cut. We can get a high cut so that we can filter that up. And then here I'm just going to take the final bar and make sure that I'm not getting too crazy with it. We're just going to keep this as one singular note. Nice. And I'm going to jump into the mod wheel automation on the synth, which is going to wash it out. The last thing we need to do is kill the sidechain on the buildup. Very nice. So we're not done with that synth there. Obviously, we're going to be using it later in the track, but there's some other situations where we could use it. So for instance, I'm actually going to copy that last part of the synth and I'm going to drop it right here as a fill. So let's try messing around with these stabs and actually introducing in the beginning of that synth. Oh man, I really enjoy this. I'm going to automate that stab sound out of it, so we're actually going to get a more full stab. This is an automation we can also do during the buildup. So I think that's going to do it for this one. I really hope you guys can see how you could just build an entire track from what you have here now. You have ambience, you have a synth that could be used throughout the whole track, you have a talking bass line, you have some extra layers that go on top of the bass line that could be brought in and out complementary. You have this export of the drums here that could be used for all of the breakdowns and the buildups and the fills. You have all of your percussion there. I really think this is all the pieces you need to build a full track. Now, I'm not going to touch this song right now. I actually think that the next video I upload to YouTube is going to be me jumping right back into this track and trying to build out some more of it, just so I could show you guys that these are the pieces you need. So thank you guys so much for watching. Obviously, subscribe to my Patreon. You're going to get literally all of the sounds I used in here. You will get on that Patreon. So I just highly suggest you jump in there. So thanks guys so much for watching. I'll be back soon.